We moved our security components, all of our signatures and all of our capability into a cloud-based architecture a very, very long time ago, about 8 years ago. As we moved into that architecture, we really came across a lot of new concerns that we had not seen from an infrastructure perspective in how we ran our company. And as a result, we said, wow, this is going to create a lot of challenges for anybody who's using cloud architecture. And so we started a cloud division. So we originally did security from the cloud about 8 years ago. And in a matter of 2 or 3 years, we very quickly realized we need to do security for the cloud. And so about 4.5 years ago, we started a cloud division. As Dave mentioned, I had the opportunity to start that up. Since then, we've invested several $100 million. I have a couple hundred dedicated full-time engineers just looking at how does cloud architecture and cloud infrastructure evolution change security? How does security enable cloud? And so I want to be clear, our goal in our division is not to put the brakes on the car to slow it down. So do you put brakes on a car so the car can go faster or slower? Faster, right? Brakes were invented so the car could go faster, right? So our job is to enable you to move to the cloud. So we look at security as an enabling technology, not as a roadblock or a brake to make you move slower. And so I want to talk really today just about that 4-year journey, what we've seen enterprises and government organizations as well as carrier providers encounter as they've moved through these technologies. So I'm not really going to talk about products. I'm not going to give you a big trend pitch. I'm really just going to talk about what we've seen as the cloud has evolved and what security challenges have presented themselves. Okay, so first of all, if you look at security strategy for most organizations, for 20 years, it's been something we call outside in. And the goal is to rack and stack all of the security on the edge, build as big a fortress as possible, and try to stop everything as it comes in. Trend Micro obviously has been a leader here on some of the edge technologies around email, web, security. So we've been part of this business for 20 years. And it really is, if you look at organizations, most of them have less and less security the further you go into the data center or the internal network environment. The security posture and profile and investment decreases. I want to talk a lot today about, given all the new threats, this model is insufficient for dealing in a cloud architecture. I'm just going to highlight 3 reasons. There's many. The big ones I'll talk about today are advanced persistent threats. The nature of the threat has changed to render this model less effective. The second one is mobility. We have a bunch of breakout sessions today on mobility, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on this stage about that. Hopefully it's obvious why mobility is breaking down this external perimeter-based security model. And then I'll talk a lot today about elastic perimeter. So this is really the essential concept of being able to move workloads across data centers into public cloud, into private cloud arena. And the nature of that has really changed how security needs to be provided. So all of these threats, all of these changes in architecture enable security breaches to pass that perimeter quite easily. And so the threat landscape of cloud-era security has really rendered outside-in or perimeter defense less effective than it used to be. So let me give you some good examples. So today I'm going to talk about the journey to the cloud. It's literally, we call it just 3 steps, physical to virtual to cloud. Is virtualization part of cloud computing? We think absolutely so. So theoretically, you can do cloud computing on bare metal. 99.99999% of organizations use virtualization as a step to go into that. So I'm going to talk a lot about virtualization. I'll call physical to virtual phase 1 in the journey of the cloud, and then virtual to cloud, both private and public or some form of hybrid cloud, will be phase 2. So let me talk to you about what we've seen at customer sites, and this is across, I've probably talked to 1,000 customers now in a one-on-one setting in the last 4 years. So phase 1 is I moved from physical to virtual, and I did it because my lines of business needed me to move faster. So if I look at a pharmaceutical industry, they can launch a massive pharmaceutical marketing campaign now in weeks as opposed to months. So lines of business would come to IT and say, I need an app up and running and I need it tomorrow. And IT departments would say, give me 3 months, give me 4 months, give me 5 months. Now, those departments are saying, I can get you an application in 1 day, 2 days, self-service, go provision your own. So we have seen across the board the evolution from physical to virtual has absolutely made IT departments move from the department of no to the department of yes. And so we see organizations moving to more and more virtualization because of speed and agility, the ability to provision IT services very quickly. Well, this is the good side. The downside is we've seen a lot of security issues associated with this speed. So let me go through one of them. One of them is around, does anybody remember the MS-12020? I'm not going to get very technical today, but the vulnerability on Microsoft server and workstation workloads that happened just last month. So basically a hole where anybody can remotely log into your server and take control of it. So these things happen. They happen on all the way up the stack. This is not a criticism of Microsoft. But what we found is in the last few years that patching vulnerabilities is the cause, or not patching vulnerabilities is the cause of 99% of all infections. 99%, right? So somebody asked me the other day if they patched all their vulnerabilities, would they not need AV? And I said, yeah, sure, of course. Nobody's ever patched all their vulnerabilities, right? But what we see is when something like MS-1220 comes out, what happens? The entire operations team stop what they're doing, regardless of what they're working on, and they go work on this. Where am I vulnerable? Where have I not patched? How do I get the patch ready? How do I test to make sure it's going to work in my environment? So as a result, one of two things happens. Either the IT productivity comes to a screeching halt because everybody's focusing on this, or people patch things that are not ready. And we've seen both. As a result, both end in downtime of mission-critical applications quite frequently. How does this relate to cloud? In a highly virtualized environment, this problem is exponentially worse. And let me go through why. So what happens is, before, everybody had physical servers. They knew which critical assets were where. They would start with the critical assets they needed and focus on the most important assets. In a virtualized world, no one knows where those are, right? They also don't know what's coming and going. So we see very commonly virtual machines in the environment will go dormant. Someone will use them for a while. Marketing department comes in, runs a campaign, shuts the infrastructure down, but keeps all the images up. They come in 30 days later, they fire up 100 more virtual machines. Those machines are not patched. They do not have security updates, and they're completely vulnerable inside the perimeter of the data center. So we've seen companies who have reactivated out-of-date security VMs, basically a vulnerable machine inside critical mission architecture and data storage, right? So even in an environment where they're cloning VMs, they may take cloned VMs off an image that's 2 days old and unpatched. So even brand new VMs can be brought up that are unpatched. The reason this is such a big problem is we saw the massive consolidation that most customers went through from physical to virtual, going from maybe 1,000 servers to 200 servers physically. We saw the proliferation of the virtual servers go up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So they used to manage 1,000 servers to patch. Now they're managing 4,000 virtual servers. Those servers are in motion, and those servers are active, inactive, and very dynamic. We have seen a significant impact on operations teams in the ability to secure the virtual infrastructure. So the hypervisor, the infrastructure is very, very secure, some of the most secure infrastructure we've ever seen. The operations side, the people side of this business, as you become highly virtualized, creates security nightmares. Most importantly, operations productivity just goes away. So I'll come back to that. But this is one of the big challenges that seems very simple, just patching. Patching vulnerabilities has become exponentially worse in a highly virtualized environment.